this year we're kind of doing it more like the NCAA basketball tournament. So this year we have 60 in there. So even though we're doing, I know Ryan's shaking his head.
How do you feel about that, Ryan?
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
God. Hello, and welcome everybody to episode 210 of the Mashup, the shortest bourbon conversation you're going to hear all week long. We are your hosts, Kenny, Anthony, and Steven. I mean, Mr. Ryan Alves.
Hello.
In the house.
So we are here today because today marks the official start of the Best of Blinds for 2024. You may have seen the social media posts of that list and all those blind sample bottles. It's freaking crazy.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to do. I posted that like at 2 a.m, making the list. I probably should have maybe put that on its own separate sheet and posted it as like a picture.
How dare you?
But I actually ran out of. I didn't realize Instagram had like a limit, so I had to delete and start abbreviating stuff. I don't do a lot of that Instagram.
Yeah, we're not savvy with social media, so if anybody out there wants to run our social media accounts for us,
yes,
we would greatly appreciate that. And we don't pay very well, but we can provide samples of bourbon.
You can get our leftovers.
Yeah,
the leftovers. There you go. If you want the Best of Blinds,
speaking of leftovers, last year's Infinity bottles, was actually really good. I still got something left over there.
Do you know what I drank last night after the Cats had that glorious victory over Gonzaga?
Sweet.
The rest of the Best of Blinds bottle.
Nice?
I did.
Wasn't
Yes,
it
I
good?
did. It
Seriously,
was very good.
It was actually good.
Excellent. It was my nightcap last evening.
That's kind of like a little book if you think about it.
Absolutely.
The latest little books are like 17 different things of all over the place.
That's right. And there was malt, American, rye, bourbon, everything in that. And it turned out pretty good, which is nice.
Once again, it's
There
a
you
little
go.
book.
So I'm going to get out of your all's way, and because this originally, for our listeners that don't know, this started as something that Ryan and Kenny spearheaded, and I want you guys to sort of lead the way and talk about the process of when this started, just to remind our listeners, because we've talked about it last year. We did like a post debrief episode, which is one of our most listened to episodes, where we talked about the best of 2023. And so can you guys just remind our audience about the process, how this started, and yeah, go ahead.
Well,
It was 2020, wasn't it?
2020.
2020 was our first year.
Yeah. And I mean, in 2020, that's when I started sipping whiskey. That's when I met Ryan. I started hanging out, and we just, I was always blinding. Like I said, even back in 2019, before I was sipping whiskey, I was still blinding Shannon and Jacob, on stuff. For some reason, that came to me as like a normal thing to do, is to blind to get rid of, it's something worth $70 versus $30 or things like that. So that aspect of blinding and then just hanging out with Ryan and drink a lot of cool whiskey in a very short period that year.
We decided all in one day.
Yeah, and then for the blinds, that's what we did. So I actually looked back at the sheets. So the very first year we did it, we had 25, and we did the preliminary rounds, and then we did the championship round all in that exact same one night.
Nice.
I'm very thankful that it was at my house. I did not have to drive. And Shannon drove the other gentleman home.
There you go.
And a few of them fell out of the truck. That was pretty funny. Like literally, because
I didn't know about
my
this.
actual truck is lifted.
I didn't really know you then.
And I think it was Andrew literally fell out and went rolling down the street. A couple of his bottles fell. I think one of his bottles broke.
I think it was
a brand new. It was his Calumet, wasn't it?
It was the Calumet one.
It was a really good Calumet that year.
Yeah, whichever one came out that year, 14 or 15.
Oh, man. Yeah. So that was the very first year. I look back on the sheet. The next year, I think we had like 34-ish or 35. And what we did that next year was we said, okay, everybody gets, I think, to have one store pick that year. And then everything else had to be like more, mainstream. Yeah. And I think we did a couple rounds that year, right?
Yeah, I think we broke it up.
Yeah, we broke it up a little bit. And then the following year, so 2022, I don't know if there's any whiskey that's as good as what came out in 2022. If you look at just the premium stuff only, that was a crazy year. But 2022 was different because Ryan, that makes total sense. We call it the best of, so we say the best of 2020,
right?
Best of 2021, best 22. So Ryan's like, you know what? Last year, the year before, I don't want to drink 25, 35 whiskeys. We're only looking for what is the very best of.
Right.
So it's kind of like maybe the first couple of years were like the NCAA basketball tournament.
Right.
You got 64 teams. Now it's 68, right? 64 teams. Well, 2022, we're like, hey, let's do it more like, college playoffs. I'm not worried about, although let's see who the number 12th versus or the 30th versus whatever is and all that stuff. So
right.
2022, we just did 15 only, and we had some preliminary rounds and then championship round. Then we changed it up last year again. Mm-hmm. Last year was the most mind-blowing thing I've done.
It was chaotic.
And that's to be honest with you, if all of us were made of money,
right,
I would do it like last year, every year.
Yeah.
So for listeners that don't know, last year it was total double blind. And if any of our listeners are not, they don't do blinds, that's cool. They don't have to do blinds. But single blinds, say if you pour out 5 whiskeys and there's 5 sitting right in front of you, a decent whiskey drinker is going to be able to tell you what those 5 are. So double blinds, though, are off the charts, mess with your mind totally. I mean, I've been giving Pappy 15 as a double blind. I was like, yeah, it's not bad. It's not a lot of flavor, but doesn't have any burn or sting. I pay $80 for that.
There you go.
I mean, stuff like that, because double blinds are just amazing. So last year what we did, there were 6 of us, and each person submitted 5 or 6. Most guys that did 5 or 6, me and Ryan did a little bit more. Bottles.
You did a lot more, not a little
a lot
bit
more. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, we just have more access.
We have more access to whiskey.
Yeah.
But we submitted them to Shannon. So I only knew what I submitted. Ryan only knew what he submitted. Anthony only knew what you submitted, so on and so forth.
Yep.
So we submitted close to 50 or 52, 53 bottles, and only the top 40 got in. So even though you knew what you submitted, you didn't know if Shannon left it in the top 40 or not.
Right.
So it truly was a complete double blind, and that was so amazing. The problem with that is, like I said, if we're not made of money. So you might have had 3 guys crack a Stag. You might have had 3 guys crack a Russell's 13 last year, or a single Rick or whatever. So
the humanity.
Yeah. Right. So
open these bottles.
So we said, okay, this year coming up, we're going to change it a little bit. Part of that, honestly, in my opinion, has to do with the podcast that we've been getting a lot. We've kind of grown a lot of listeners and a lot of feedback from people.
Yeah.
And this year we're kind of doing it more like the NCAA basketball tournament. So this year we have 60 in there. So even though we're doing, I know Ryan's shaking his head.
How do you feel about that, Ryan?
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. But our thought process on that is because a lot of times we will talk about how certain like high-end or premium bottles don't stack up in blinds. Or every week on the Mashup podcast, if we have a premium bottle, I'll throw a blind against it on something that's a lot less expensive,
right,
to see how it holds up. So this year's thought process is we're going to put a lot of the big catchy names out there. If you look at the list that we posted, some of the stuff is high-end stuff. It's very hard to get, very allocated, very expensive.
Yep.
Other items that we put in there are what we drank that we felt were just bangers. And so we did not limit it on like one store pick or group pick per person. If it's something you thought was just great, boom, it's in there. And there's some lesser expensive bottles that we think are going to score pretty good.
Yep.
So this year's was kind of also to show what some of the less expensive bottles just score against the high-end stuff.
Well, and also, like you said, we're all friends and we all have a pretty close circle. And so usually if somebody tries something and we like it, if somebody else in the group is like, I'll take one if you can get me, you know what I mean?
Right.
There's a lot of crossover with our bourbon collections and what we're drinking throughout the year, especially if it's a store pick. I mean, if you guys do a store pick, I do a pick, we do a pick together, like most people in the group are going to grab it. So to eliminate that sort of everybody opening the same bottle and then 5 of them getting eliminated,
right,
we just went back to a spreadsheet where everybody put their submissions. We whittled it down to 60. And we're going to do it like that. We're still going to be blind in the tasting part of it, but everybody knows what's been, entered into it.
Yeah, and that's what I put on the Instagram and Facebook post was, it's not double blind, but there's 60 of them, and we 100% are not going to know the 5 to 10 in front of you at a time.
Right.
It's not double blind, but it's, which I just called it like single and a half blind, because it's 60 of them. It's not like it's 10.
Single blind plus.
Yeah, single blind plus, man, because there's 60. It's going to be very, you are not going to drink that and be like, oh yeah, I think this is that or that, because you're picking from 60.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out here, because I get really excited looking at this list, is my eyes are drawn to one thing, and you guys will know why. In this best of, we have William LaRue Weller, Weller Millennium, Pappy Van Winkle 15, Old Fitzgerald 13-year VVS. But I'm going with the weeders only, right? Weeders, yeah. You got 5 of like what's considered to be the best weeders out there, all in this blind, and they're all things that people go after like mad, right? And it's just so much like that. There's all kinds of great stuff on this list.
5 weeders, you said?
I think there's 5 weeders in there.
I think there's 6 because they
6,
could. Yeah. No, there's a couple more. Actually, maybe 8.
Okay.
Those 5 big boy weeders might get taken down by Maker's 46.
There you go. I forgot about Makers. That's right.
Kenny's.
I'm going through looking at this. Yeah.
Gem of 2024.
So that's what's going to be the cool thing about this, right? Yeah. Is that we're going to have some heavyweight whiskeys, and like I'm not going to lie to you guys, like I've had so much fun doing this. When you started including me, it was 2022. Then for me, it was a no-brainer. We're looking at some of these big bottles that each of us contributed. I'm like, who would be better to share this with than our tasting group, right? So it's about the camaraderie too that we have when we're here. It's just amazing.
That is what's funny though. So we had a Google Doc sheet that each of us could sign into and log into. And we added, a bunch of different bourbons. We had a big list, and we said, okay, put a check mark next to some that you're okay if it gets left out. Maker's 46 Cask got some check marks, but I had to veto that and override that. I just love that little French toast Fat Boy Whiskey Bomb dessert, man. So I think I might do good.
And we do realize that there's a lot of whiskey on here. I saw the comments this morning. Like people are like, I've never even heard of half of these.
Yep.
And we get that. But look, we're looking for the best. Sorry, but usually the best whiskey that's released in the year isn't something you're just going to be able to walk into the store and find. Yeah. It's the kind of the pain point of the whiskey journey that you go on is like usually the stuff that is top tier is limited. There's a reason for that, right? Distilleries aren't putting their absolute best whiskey that they have to offer for $40 on the shelf all day. Sorry, it just is what it is.
Other than last year with Rebecca Creek Spanish Double Oak, baby, boom, $60, no hollers. That's still one of the best whiskeys for the money ever.
And I mean, what Ryan said is true. And the other thing is if you do have like a regular shelfer that you like and you don't see it on this list, that's a different kind of a blind, right? Mm-hmm. That's absolutely 100% different. And I would say that even if that shelfer made it in here, it probably wouldn't make it to the top.
Sure.
It might surprise, and toward the lower tier, maybe what ends up being the like lower tier of the last 10 or 15 whiskeys, maybe. But usually that wouldn't be the case because early on there were some shelfers put in there. Sure. I think in the 2020 and 2021.
Yeah. And I was going to bring that up. So like, don't get me wrong. I mean, it is money. It's expensive. Some of these bottles are allocated and they're expensive. So not to knock what your daily drinkers are, but I look in a lot of the big bourbon groups, like I'm going to say the big ones, like the Bourbon R's and Dad Drinking or whatever. Like a bunch of the ones that have like 20, 30,000 people in those groups. Yeah. Like Bourbon for example, people talk about Benchmark Foolproof and this and that. We actually put it in there one year. I think it scored a 1 or a 2. It was just trash. It was not good. So, if you like that's your thing. No big deal. Everybody's palate's different. But things like that, there's just not. That's a different episode or different blind as shelfers. This is the premium of premiums.
This is serious. But I don't want to interrupt here. But what do we have? We're having something to drink here.
Yeah. So what we have? Raconteur Rye Batch 1.
Okay.
Shout out David Jennings.
There you go.
Raconteur Rye Batch 2 is in the blinds.
Yep.
Okay.
I personally like Batch 1 better.
Okay. And I think I have picked Batch 1 time at a blind. I think
you like Batch. Yeah,
but
you've gone both ways, I think.
Since I like Batch 2 more, and I do think I like Batch 2 overall.
But I do agree with Batch 2 going into the blinds instead of Batch 1. Batch 2 is, I think, a little bit more balanced and more bourbon-y type of notes to it. So I think it will potentially hold up better than Batch 1. But I've been on a rye kick the last year and a half. I just love rye. But Batch 1 is awesome. It's just a little bit more rye-y than Batch 2. So that's why we chose Batch 2 over 1.
I think it's been talked about by some people, in my circles, like 2024 really being an amazing year for rye whiskey releases. There's a lot of great rye whiskey out there. Now, there's an argument could be said that a lot of it is similar in its mash bill or distilled in state or whatever.
Right.
But some really great rye whiskey that came out this year. Raconteur being some of our favorite. Obviously, good friends with David Jennings, James Simons from the Woodwork, the Collective, another good friend of the show, and of mine, and a Bourbon Outfitter. So we thought to kind of warm up. We're going to get started here in the next half hour when the rest of the guys show up. To get started and kind of kick things off, we'd go with Rack and Tour Batch 1.
Yeah, I just want to interject here and say, I know it's not lost upon anybody to have strong opinions on notes and stuff like that, but it's been a while since I've had Rack and Tour Batch 1, and what strikes me about this is I don't remember it having this much sweetness on the nose. I don't know, maybe I haven't had it in a while, but it's like a caramel apple, like it's so delicious, and that's a good example to talk about. So as much as I like Rack and Tour Batch 1, I could say that I might like Batch 2 better. Yeah. And that's taking nothing away from Batch 1. And that's the thing about the list, too, that we put together, right?
Well, the original list had both in there.
Had both in there. But yeah, we went with one. And
look, it also... There were thousands of bottles that got released this year. Right. We would never get finished if we included everything. So
you sure you don't want to be here 6-7 months?
Right. No, I'm not even married yet, and I'll be divorced. We shot for a number. We at least wanted to do 48. I think that was kind of our minimum. And we said, look, if we're gonna do 48, we're gonna have to split that up into 3 days anyway. Well, if we do 3 days, then we can do 60. Yeah. So let's see how it shakes out. We had way more than 60 on the initial list. We pared that down to our top 60. There's probably going to be things we left off. Supposedly that Michter's 20 was getting released this year. Yeah. I mean, unless it gets released in the next week. Probably he's not going to be in there.
Well, Kentucky's been last for everything, right? Wasn't it some other state? Usually, I think the 20s has been another state. Or
I haven't seen it yet.
But I'm
not saying it hasn't been, but
it just seems like we always get last.
Obviously, there's going to be stuff that we missed out on or didn't include.
Right.
It just is what it is. We'd be here forever.
I might audible add some extra, make all y'all mad anyway. No, but what's like last year? Last year, Whiskey of the Year, and it was by decent margin. Yeah. Was the Rare Character Exceptional Series Malt. I think it was barrel 54?
54,
yeah.
But there were four of the barrels of that same caliber, basic age, all that released. If we'd have put all 4 of those in, I think all 4 would have been in the top 10. That's how good they were. So we chose not to do that.
Right.
Just like this year, Rack and Tour Rye Batch 1, it would score good.
I think so.
But we're just going to put one of the two, things like that.
There's only a couple of brands that might have multiples.
Right.
And it's really not even the same SKU. There's 3 Maker's Mark products, like stuff like that.
Well, that's the thing. We almost eliminated the heart. It was talked about multiple times. The reason why I wanted to include the heart is the heart, to me, is the best of their special release since FAO2.
Yep.
It killed the other ones, in my opinion. Yeah. So stuff like that.
Well, and this is something I feel like I've also tried to just remind folks is like, look, there can only be one winner. So when you look at it, really makes more sense to only do the absolute best 10.
Like we did in 2022.
Like we did in 2022.
Right.
Problem with that, I think, is it doesn't show the parity that can exist. It doesn't show that Maker's 46 cast strength might score better than Pappy 15,
right,
or equal. And I think that is also because the podcast element has brought a kind of a new sort of like what I think you guys do a great job on the podcast is being that public kind of voice. Look, we all have expensive taste. We like expensive whiskey, right?
Right.
Duh. But if we can show that, this $50 bottle is great, or even this $150 bottle is great, and it beats out this whatever bottle, or it's this really awesome bottle is really awesome and it finishes first.
Like in 2022 with Michter's 20.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is to show where things finish. If we're only going for the one, we might as well just do just 10 bottles.
And honestly, if it wasn't for the podcast aspect, I'd be down to do like we did 2022, just do 15 only, just because it's way less drinking.
Sure.
But I did post on there because no one's mentioned it yet, but there's no Elijah Craig barrel proof batches in this year. Once again, just like 2022 was the first year that like a larceny beat Elijah Craig for us.
Yeah.
And the Elijah Craig barrel proof was not good on any of the batches I didn't feel in 2022. This year was the same way. So we have a really good Elijah Craig barrel proof pick. So there's still a representation of that, just not one of the batches. So it's just, our list is our list. Everyone can make their own list and do their own thing, and we'd love to hear about it.
There's stuff that we haven't had that other people have had that's probably awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like it just is what it is. We can't, again, we couldn't do it.
Yeah, and I think it's an opportunity for dialogue too.
Sure.
You know, which is always great in what we're doing to continue to sort of spread that around the community.
Yeah.
And then also, you know, we will make no apologies for our list. I mean, if you really think about it, this list to a lot of people that are looking at it are going, man, I'm never going to be able to taste 30 or 40 of those whiskeys, or else I might be one of those 30 or 40 might be my moment whiskey.
Right.
We have a lot of fun with this. We also take it very seriously. And I think that's reflected in not only the podcast, but also just the other thing that's nice. I just have to say this is outside of you, sir, with Bourbon Outfitter, the podcast isn't taking on samples and stuff from a lot of places. And so really this is a good representation of our community, what we drink, what we've tasted. And I think that's a solid thing, right? You know, that
all these whiskeys were funded by us, all 6 of us.
Correct, funded, exactly. We spent a lot of money to put this list together too. So I just think that's another thing that our listeners always need to know and needs to be reinforced, is that we're doing this largely for the passion of what we're doing. You know, it's not like any of us are taking in, you know, a ton of money from this from this blind.
We've lost money.
We've lost money. Yeah, exactly.
We even all pitched in to have like a community pool of money to like, because there were certain bottles that we couldn't find or you know whatever, so we just went and got samples of, or went and found the bottle, you know, and we paid secondary for it. I mean, it just is what it is.
Exactly.
Next year, community pool's getting tripled.
or maybe next year we get crowdfunded a little bit too. You never know.
Well,
get a Patreon going or something.
Speaking of that, I think what might be kind of cool, and I don't want to open up a can of worms here. And
please. We're all about the cans of worms and facts
literally
being
going
optional.
off the cuff here, but
please.
I don't speak for the mashup, but I think if you're at home and you're listening and you see our list and there's something that you think we're missing out on, like truly missing out, whiskey of the year, send us a sample. Send the guys a sample. Let them do it. Let them do an episode on it. We'll take, you know, blind it up against a couple of our best scores, and then
it's a great idea.
Like, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Also, if you're listening, I mean, you can just Venmo me a couple $1,000, and we will include some other bottles next year as well. So.
Ain't that the truth?
So what was the second pour?
Yeah, what's this other one?
Well, in Kenny Mills True Fashion,
there you go.
We have another 2024 release, but it's blind to you all now.
Okay.
This one did not make the cut, even though it was close to getting in.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's got that's nice. It's a little,
I like it.
Yeah. Little caramel florally.
It's got a cool, if I had to guess, it was like double barreled.
Ooh. That's a good guess.
It's got a
toasty,
vanilla, toasty.
Yeah.
I don't think it's toasted, but it wouldn't surprise me. It was double oaked, yeah.
Is this double oaked?
That's what it tastes like to me.
Oh, well, Kenny knows. We don't know.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm going to say...
It does taste double oaked, doesn't it?
Yeah. Let me just sip one more time.
You know, I get excited. Get excited about this stuff. Just think, in about a half hour's time,
oh God,
we're going to be knee deep in it. We're going to be having some, and the greatest thing too is like I can see the sample bottles over there. You guys saw a picture of them on social media. It is literally like you can't. We're going to have. We didn't mention that. We're going to have Black Glen Cairns as well.
Yeah.
So we can't.
We're going to try and take as much bite size as we can.
Everything out that we can. Yeah. So
we don't. We know what the bottles are.
Right.
Kenny and I pour everything. Everything's numbered on the bottom. We don't look.
Right.
We don't. We are going to do something with proof this year, so we don't have a
150 next to a 90.
Yeah.
So we've got some things broken up into proof ranges.
It's very smart.
Just to be a little bit more fair on some of that stuff, but like ultimately, it's on the table. We're going to grab samples out of certain little groups and pour them. We don't know what's in there.
Yeah. Which is
and I promise you, like there's not one person out of 6 of us that have had all 60 of these.
Oh yeah,
correct.
No way.
So you might be able to say, "Oh man,"
because it would either be me or you. To be honest with you,
right? Yeah,
and I've 100%
I'm not either.
Yeah,
and so there are things that you might be able to sit there as we're doing it and like kind of process of elimination. Like I know this is in, maybe this is it. I usually that you just get in your head at that point.
I think you can do that with 10.
Yeah,
right.
You can't do it with 60.
No.
I can't even remember.
Yeah.
All 60.
I can't either. All right,
I submitted half.
There you go.
This one that I wanted to put in
Grand Reveal
is Old Louisville. Ryan Alves' double oak shorty pick from as Bourbon Outfitter 116 proof, only 90 bottles out of this 7. There's a 7-year.
Oh, nice.
7-year double barrel, and 7 years should be about 180 to 220 bottles, really, like easily.
Yep.
And so there's only 90. So this was a really, really, really good one, I thought. But we already have 2 old Louisvilles in there, so we decided not to do this one.
Ryan, are you upset about that?
No, because I think that I love that pick, and that was the first time I had done a pick there. That's the day that I picked with the Bourbon Junkies.
Oh, okay.
With Dan Shook and then my friends Dan and Julie Light.
Was it the first one?
No, because I think I'd been there with you.
Been there with me,
maybe.
Yeah.
Either way, I mean that was the first time I'd picked a barrel. Like went there and bought a barrel. I think that my 36% short one is better. Yeah. Personally, but I'd love that. A lot of people hit me up and tell me that they love that pick, and
that's good. That's very good.
Double Oaked was on the nose there.
Yeah, and that's man. That's another. These 2 whiskeys, my opinion, fantastic. They're not in the field, but that's okay because there's other things that are going to be equally, if not more, delectable in the field. So, what do you think, gentlemen?
I'd say we probably call it a wrap. And
I think I'm warmed up.
You're warmed up now?
Ask me in 2 hours. And we take a mandatory break.
Yeah, we got to get the Black Glen set up, and we'll get this thing rolling.
Take the mics down and put some football on.
There you go. Cleveland Browns, Pittsburgh Steelers. Is that what I hear?
That's what I need. I need Pittsburgh to win. That's what I need. I love Jameis. I'm becoming a Jameis fan over the last month.
There you go.
But for the for the parlay, we need Pittsburgh.
Yeah. No, I hear you. All right. Well, I won't hold that against you. And best of 2024 is starting, and we'll keep you updated.
Yep.
Boom.
And with that, thanks for listening to this episode. Please like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Mashup KY.
Don't forget to visit our partner, bourbonoutfitter.com. Enter code The Mashup for a special discount.
Also,
head on over to our partner, the Woodwork Collective, at woodworkcollective.shop. Enter code MASHUP for a 15% discount.
Also, let us know your thoughts on this bottle in the comment section. Until next time, keep it neat.